We often talk about innovation as being central to the entrepreneurship journey as they are figuring out their path when they have had a new idea or they want to start in a new venture. Yet, we sometimes downplay the other side of the coin. And this side of the coin is called the creativity area. This oversight, though, is absolutely understandable, especially in the African realm. And today we are going to focus specifically to the Zimbabwean environment. Unfortunately, this leaves a lot of stories untold. And we have got amazing innovators and amazing creators of our generation who are coming with solutions that are solving local problems that are happening at the grassroots level. And today we are going to focus on what's happening on the ground and what's possible. So you can imagine my excitement when I stumbled upon a young Zimbabwean who's doing amazing things. And he has got a YouTube channel which he started to tell the untold stories of the creators, the innovators, the athletes, the business people that we've got on this landscape. And he is looking at telling their stories as they are, going into their spaces and exploring what potential they have and bringing to surface what is happening on the ground. Of course, this young entrepreneur is Farai Mudzingwa. So Farai, welcome and thank you so much for agreeing to have a chat with me today. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And so today we are just going to have a conversation. We want to bring out the work that you're doing, looking at how did you start, what really happened, and how did we end up here. And hopefully you're going to encourage one young person out there to say, yes, go for it and do it right. So as we know, the traditional path of a young person in Zimbabwe is to go to school. After school, it's university, and then maybe find a job, right?
Yeah.
So how was it for you? Talk to us about that.
It was a bit different because after I left my A-levels, I started looking for a job. I couldn't find one for most of that year because I took an entire year off. The reason I did this is because I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. So I took a year off to think, to rest, and to strategize. Couldn't find a job, applied for a diploma in software engineering. Reason being, tech is where the money is, so I might as well go and do that if I still don't know what I want to do. What also happened to happen is one of the jobs I had applied to was with TechZim, that's a media company in Zimbabwe. I applied to them and I had failed to get the job. That was around mid-year 2017. Towards the end of the year, I think December, I think New Year's Eve actually, they emailed me and they said, do you still want that job? You were our second best candidate and we now have an opening. Are you still interested? And I was like, yeah, I still am, because I hadn't gone to school yet. So I took it up, and in early 2018, I went into media. That's how I actually started becoming a practitioner in media.
Really? And isn't it amazing that sometimes life takes us on a path, right, that you actually never thought or dreamt? Because I'm imagining that, going to school, A-level, you probably didn't have an idea that you were going to end up in media, right?
Yeah, I had no idea. To be fair, even when I went to TechZim, I walked into that opportunity with misgivings in regards to what my work was going to be like. Because at the time I was really young, I was 19, or I had just turned 20, I think. And so my feeling was that I'm going to be reviewing cool phones. I really wanted to write about tech and gadgets because I'm obsessed about, technology. And then what I realized after taking the job up is that's not what was needed.
Right.
The information gap we needed to fill in Zimbabwe wasn't specific to gadgets. It wasn't specific to laptops, phones, and stuff like that. It was more covering startups, technology, and so it was an entirely different world to what I even walked into, where the expectations I had when I walked into it.
Amazing. So do you think that when you reflect back and you look back, the information gap that you're talking about, do you think that there could have been a way that you could have been better informed of what is there in terms of careers for young people during the time when you're in school? Do you think that would have made a difference in terms of knowing what's happening on the landscape in the tech space?
Yeah, I think I definitely think it makes a difference because information is powerful. When your career choices are limited to lawyer, engineer, doctor, what else is common? I think those are the common things. When you're only limited to that, and then you don't find yourself fitting into that box, it's also a really scary thing because, you're only 19 and you're wondering, so should I just go to school because everyone else is going, or should I risk and play around with things and actually figure myself out? So I think exposure, early exposure is incredibly important because it informs people. And being informed early means you can maybe start practicing towards that path. So what that means is if I had been informed about the media path early on, I could have maybe interned with TechZim on a holiday or something like that and had a feel of whether this is a path for me or not. So early exposure is definitely an important thing, and it's one of the things that we are actually working towards with Story Untold.
Oh, that's brilliant. That sounds amazing. So your YouTube channel, talk to me about it. The Stories Untold. How did we get here? How did you get started?
So late 2020, I left TechZim after 3 years. I had learned a lot. I'd been exposed to a lot, but I still felt that information gap still existed. So because I'd left and naturally, because I built up contacts during my time there, I figured why not start from there, but this time with a view to ownership, owning a bit more, owning a bigger piece of the pie. So the reason why this became an important thing for me is because at TechZim, as fantastic a place as it was, we were more limited in terms of tech and business. So I had a inclination towards speaking to more creative people, athletes, stuff like that. That wasn't really in our editorial agenda, for lack of a better term. So I felt, why not try it? Why not make episodes and start distributing them on my own? That's really how we came to start.
So when we look at your journey, we are seeing you taking that leap of faith to trying media is an option, right? Yeah. So if we are speaking to a young person who's listening to the program, it's about doing. You have to take that step and do, right? Because if you don't and you're afraid to say, oh, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any of these things, and I'm not fitting in the box, then you miss out on what could be your true purpose, right? Yeah. And then the next layer is that what I'm understanding and learning is that when you have gone into a space, what is it that you can learn very quickly if that is part of your path that I can run with, and then take the next leap of faith to starting something completely new.
Yeah, I think that was the most valuable thing, and the thing I always repeat any chance I'm given about TechZim is that the way the company is structured meant that I got an opportunity not only to learn about journalism and distribution and models, but to learn about the business side, how it works, where the money comes from. And I think that was a very valuable experience that I might not have been able to get if I was in another media house. It's an unfair assumption to make, but it is an assumption on my part. So the experience I got was really holistic, for lack of a better term. It was more than just me being in media, but also learning about how a business works. And now that's, I think, what we're trying to replicate, but with our core focus being video instead of text as they do.
Awesome. And I'm just going to pick another point as well. Yeah. You mentioned an amazing piece, right? Because a lot of people overlook the business side of it. You may be a creative and an innovator, but if you don't have the business sense of how you're going to make business work, it will be just an expensive hobby, right? That's how I look at it. So just talk to me back again, because we spoke about it earlier on, that when you joined TechZim was a startup. Yeah. And I think that was another important ingredient, because at the level where you were operating, you were probably wearing a lot of hats. Do you want to just unpack a little bit of that so the next person can learn more on that?
Yeah, I think in regards to learning a lot of things, during my time, my 3 years there, I was an editor, so essentially commissioning what gets written, writing, and then also going through some guest posts and stuff like that. Also worked on audio podcasts during my time. Also worked on, I think, social media was another thing that we touched on. And then beyond the direct output in terms of content, like I said, I got exposed to seeing so many things because during my time there, we transitioned from relying on an advertising model as most, I say we, Tech Zim transitioned from relying on an advertising model as most media companies do, and we went to e-commerce.
Right.
So that showed me many things in terms of, I think the biggest takeaway for me was the creativity the CEO showed in terms of like finding markets that you normally wouldn't associate with a media company.
Absolutely.
So that was a huge thing because we got to see the business from a top-down perspective, if that makes sense.
Wow.
You're one piece in the machine, but you get to experience so many different things. Even I think customer service in terms of emails, even though I wasn't really great at that, but interfaced with that, and so that gives you exposure in so many different ways. And then now when you have the Story Untold and you're a one-man band for now, you understand, you have a starting point that you can reference. Some of those same structures, some of those same lessons you took from there, you take it and you move with that.
And now you're okay wearing all the hats, right? The CEO, the runner boy, the everything, the card, the editor.
It's a complex question. I wouldn't necessarily say I am okay with it, but that is the stage of the journey that we are at. And that's also fine.
Yeah, and I think that I always say this to entrepreneurs and startups to say, don't wait till you've got all your your ducks in a row, because that doesn't really happen, right? That day doesn't come. So if it means that you have to wear 10 hats, but the key is get started and get going. What resources do I have? What do I have? And what skill knowledge do I have? And as long as I've got those things, you can run with it, right?
I genuinely agree with that and believe. And I think structures and processes makes things easier. So one of the things that we're doing when we distribute content, our social media, is we have a template where I follow a template for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. And what that does is it allows you to easily copy and paste for different platforms and adapt to different platforms. Whereas if I wasn't following certain structures and processes like that, it would be harder because you'd be thinking, okay, now I've done this, what do I have to do next? And so stuff like checklists and there's a lot to learn. I'm also still learning. It's just been a year and a half essentially.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So learning along the journey is part of the process.
Yeah. Building the plane whilst you crash or something like that. I don't remember the saying.
That's good. Amazing. I am an investor, by the way, and I'm so interested in the African ecosystem in terms of what's happening with the startups and stuff like that. So I provide mentorship and stuff like that. So your story caught my eye. And so let's talk about what happened. How did you pitch when you had your startup week, when your organization or your startup was chosen for the top 10? Right, and you made it, and your project was just a baby. Talk to me about that.
So Content Creators Week, that was an interesting thing because I applied without knowing the brief for the competition, which was civic society. If I had known that before, I wouldn't have applied. I would have assumed we don't fit this brief. But after applying, they said, come and pitch. We like what you're doing. Went there, we pitched. Fortunately, we came... I think unfortunately, really, we came 6th out of 10 startups. But yeah, it was a good experience. It was my first time pitching. Yeah. As a person who was in media, I had attended many of those things and watched on, but it was my first time actually pitching and seeking out a grant.
Yeah, but I don't really think that was unfortunate, because I always believe that every experience is working towards my bigger good, right? It doesn't matter good or bad, but that experience positioned you in terms of you didn't know the brief. So I think you did amazingly well. And more than anything, money cannot buy that experience. Yeah. So you did well. And I think it validated your idea.
Yeah,
right.
That's a very important thing to say. So from the micro grant that we won, it also got us new equipment. So there's a lot of value in that. Our production quality rose, I think, significantly. Even if you watch the episode before and after that competition, you can actually tell. visually that there was a difference. So when I say unfortunate, it's one of those where I wanted more, but definitely every experience serves to inform a later experience, I think. So in that regard, next time I know what to prepare for. So
absolutely. And that takes me to my next question, because I'm always interested in understanding how, when people have got their ideas, and what is that first step that they take in terms of raising capital, right? So for you, you've just mentioned that you did get a bit of a grant. Talk to us about that. How did you plan your first initial capital and then getting the grant? And how has that been for you?
Okay, so the initial capital was actually not the grant. The initial capital was savings from my time at TechSim. I'm generally like a really like frugal person.
Really?
I do not like spending money that much. So I had not a ton of money, but I had enough money to start a business. And I had a couple of ideas that, because of COVID, I couldn't act on. The only idea that I could act on during COVID was Stories Untold. And I took my savings, bought a couple of pieces of equipment, and I leveraged the contacts I had, as I said earlier, and we started shooting. So that was the initial capital. It was money from my pocket. And then after 5 months, we went to Content Creators Week. We got a micro grant. It really was just $500, to be fair. It was $500. The top price was $2K. We got 5, and used that again to invest in more equipment, better lighting, better microphones. But the bulk of the funding of the business has come out of my pocket. So I've got a part-time job, and then that's the capital that goes into the Story Untold.
Wow, so that's amazing. I was just going to comment on the $500 story, right?
Yeah.
I have my own £500 story. $500 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let me make this clear. Let me make this clear to anybody listening. $500 is a lot of money. When we first started business, when I first went into business, I wanted to borrow £500. £500. And guess what? I could not get it.
Yeah, you can never get it.
And that £500 meant the world to me. And when I didn't get it, I was hurt, because it was going to make me or break me.
Yeah.
So I think that appreciation of, what's available to me and what can I do with it is absolutely amazing, that it can, change your story. And for you, that's what it did. Right now, you can count it in your bag to say it was part of my capital.
Part of the journey. It really was. It's important in that no one is ever just going to give you the $500 unless you're like extremely privileged. No one is just going to give you that money. So in that regard, it really is important. And like you said before, validation. It validates you, because some of the things that we do as entrepreneurs seem a bit wild, and so someone saying, okay, here's more to keep pursuing, it keeps your confidence high.
Absolutely. So yeah, fantastic. And then I was going to comment on being able to save your own funds, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs I come across, they are like, okay, I've got an idea. There is no evidence of what have they done with the idea, and they're looking for 100,000. And you're like, what? Yeah. So I think having the understanding to say, no matter how little what you have, you can work with what you have, at least to prove your concept. And then if you can start there, somebody can then validate that, and then you can work your way. So I think you are absolutely doing amazing on the journey.
I think in regards to working with what we have, we've done, so far in the past 15, 16 months, we've managed to shoot 14 episodes.
Wow.
And all of them are shot on mobile, because I didn't have the money to buy a camera. I had to make a decision between microphones, lighting, and I was like, okay, I'll just use my phone and get lighting and microphones. So yeah, starting with what you have is an extremely important thing for me, because like you said, there are a lot of people who have ideas. Everyone has ideas. We live in a broken place. Like, every place is broken. There's always something to fix, right? And so it's not necessarily about ideas, but more about what are you doing that gets you closer to the thing that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. On the topic of funding, I totally understand how difficult it is on the African continent to get anyone fund startups, especially when they're really right at the beginning, right? And I think that we have seen some really struggle. An example is the podcast that used to do so well, our beloved Sadza podcast. Yeah. These guys were doing amazing, and suddenly, you know. So, for you, how are you going to navigate the terrain?
Okay, so I think when you approach problem solving, I think being realistic is very important. So what we are doing, the work we are doing right now, is a proof of concept.
Right.
So on one end, there is a funding problem. But on the other end, I cannot be one to complain because I have not worked for long enough to have a body of work that I can go to an investor and show them numbers. And so it's a double-edged sword. There definitely is. I would love for there to be more money.
Yeah.
But I also understand that the stuff that we're doing, the problems that we're trying to solve are extremely difficult to solve. Media business models are tricky to figure out. And so I understand that in some respect there is an element of adventure. So I think the most important thing is if we can figure out how either to make it sustainable or get funding. I think the important thing on the continent now is that people start sharing openly the things that they are doing and where they are failing in the event that they fail. So if the Story Untold fails, we should be able to be humble enough to show people where we failed so that someone else can pick up on the work and continue.
And I think I like what you said, right? Because the power is in the, I'm going to come back to my words, the power is in the doing. And as entrepreneurs and as innovators, we are always trying to chant the enchanted paths, right?
Exactly.
And solving problems that probably not everybody is willing to take on. And so while funding is very important, because you are bootstrapping and you're using your money, you are kind of allowing yourself to see and figure things out. And as you figure out, and when you've got your proof of concept, I think that's a good place to be in, because you can then go to someone and say, I've got this, I've proved this, this works. And I think for investors, really, to be honest, that's what they are interested in. They are not interested in having conversations with people who are still in the ideation stage, right? But if you can prove your concept and put your own muscle and your own leg, cut your own arm and say, I'm in, right? It's very easy for somebody else to come in and say, wow, this entrepreneur has got something. Because at the end of the day, it's about the entrepreneur and about the spirit and about what problem they're solving. So I really agree with you on that one. I think that's amazing.
I think maybe another thing to add on is in terms of VC, we're still, the exposure is still relatively low. So what I mean by that is these Zimbabweans who have money are still learning about this stuff. So sometimes you also have to be patient and hope that you survive long enough for them to then wake up to the opportunity. Because the world is changing and these are not the models of success that they've been exposed to.
Absolutely.
So, expecting that people come from the West and invest into Zimbabwe, we need Zimbabweans to take that.
So, local Zimbabweans, if you're out there, we're speaking to these young entrepreneurs, they're calling you out. Come forward and listen to these stories. We need you to support them financially so they can achieve their very best. So thank you so much. That was good. Yeah, so even though you are still bootstrapping, I'm absolutely amazed that you have done so far 15 episodes, spoken to 15 amazing entrepreneurs on your Untold Stories on YouTube. Would you like to talk to us about what's been your greatest learning from all these people that you're talking to?
So the Story Untold is a bit of a cheat code in that as an entrepreneur, you're always going to meet certain barriers that really deflate you. It's like the thing you said about not getting the £500 loan and thinking your life is over. But then when you're constantly speaking to people, what you then realize is that it is not easy. And it is not guaranteed. And so I think the biggest lessons I've learned, patience. I think an example I can give is Pius Ninyewa. He's the studio lead for Alula Animation. That was our first episode. It's been 14 years. I only got to interview him in his 14th year. I think they started the studio after 10 years of animating for 10 years. So some things you have to understand that it takes time. You have to be patient. And then resilience and creativity, because Zimbabwean market is, what's the best way to say it? There's not much disposable income. So getting to the money requires a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
There's guys like Tawanda Chihamba who I've spoken to. He's in drones. So one of the recurring things you see about Story Untold episodes is people in the comment section saying, wow, I didn't know this was possible in Zim. I didn't know this was happening in Zim. So it's about creativity and being able to survive long enough to execute on the goals that you have.
Yeah, so only those who persevere. Perseverance, for me, those are my key attributes. You need to be able to persevere because there is a lot of pain associated with entrepreneurship. There's a lot of suffering in terms of, and it's a very lonely space, you know.
Oh yeah,
people will be like,
people love the idea of a risk taker, but when you are taking the risk, you're very isolated.
Yeah.
But I think if you sign up knowing, it's fine. I think.
Exactly.
I honestly think.
Yeah. So I agree with you in the sense that I want to comment on the hearing of the stories and then learning the patience and the perseverance from others, because for me, I've been an entrepreneur 20 years, right? This is my 21st year, and that's all the life I've known. So I have kind of known that I live on this adrenaline rush that is one big day where I've got highs, you know, and tomorrow
crashing lows.
It crashes, right? But I'm okay with it. I'm okay to have all this, everything that's going in. Tomorrow I don't have anything. Yet I have got the comfort in knowing that I'm living in my purpose and I'm okay. I've got no pressure. And I think, like you're saying, if you go in it knowing that I'm going to be okay with the adrenaline and the pressures, but the rewards, when you make it work, when you know that
you can solve the problem,
this is my solutions, that beats everything.
I think that is the whole point of startups. It's high risk, but extremely high reward. So if we can solve the problems in the way that I envision that we can, this is not altruism on my part. I don't think I'm doing this just because I think I'm a good person. No, I genuinely believe there's a huge opportunity. There's a huge gap.
So what's your definition of success on this journey that you are having with the Stories Untold startup? How does a picture look like to say, you would say to yourself, wow, I've succeeded? Okay,
so there are two measures. The first measure is that I would like to make 100 episodes. I would like to meet 100 people, tell 100 stories. And the second is building a sustainable media business. So let me explain that a bit. If we fail to build a sustainable media business, but we have at least managed to make 100 episodes, that is still a fantastic resource that young people can tap into. We can leave it to grow passively, and YouTube will do what it does with that kind of content. But really, in my heart of hearts, I want to build a media business. That's really what I want to do, and we'll take the steps that I think are necessary, the learnings that I think are necessary, and we'll see how it goes. But if we fail that, it's 100 episodes, and then we'll leave everything we've learned to other people to continue our work.
Like I always define success. A success is a total sum of failures and successes mixed together, but coming up with this amazing outcome, you know, because that whatever that experience is going to be, that is going to be an outcome. With entrepreneurship, you can never study in university a course that's going to teach you hands-on entrepreneurship. The hows, I mean, that doesn't happen, right? And especially in the 21st century right now, where we have got the books that are still used in the university are from, I don't know, generations before. And now you've got all these young people studying business or whatever. But to be honest with you, entrepreneurship is made of all these failures. They are the most important pieces that really make you a successful entrepreneur. So thank you so much for taking time to speaking to me.
Thank you so
really
much
appreciate you
for having me. I'm honored, and I hope more people come and see what we're doing, come and see what you're doing, because there really is an information gap in Zim, and the work you're doing is great. Yeah, well done doing the Story Untold. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this amazing episode with our young entrepreneur Farai Mudzingwa of the Stories Untold Zimbabwe. I really hope that you've been inspired to start your own venture. Go for it.
take the steps and use what you have right now to get started. There has never been a time like now. So as always, feel free to leave your questions and comments on this episode, and remember to subscribe so that you won't miss any episode in the future. And lastly, don't forget to go and check out the Story Untold YouTube channel so you can see the amazing stories that are being told there. See you soon. Bye-bye.